Forgot to turn my microphone on. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Happy Juneteenth. I'd like to welcome everybody to class and thank you for coming. Yes, it is a federal holiday and yet we're still in class. That's kind of interesting. We've got eight hearty souls who are here in class today, and it looks like we've got a bunch of people online. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this morning. Before we get started with class, I do want to talk a little bit about the writing assignments that I graded and that turned back into you. Remember, if you received a grade of 1, you are welcome to revise and resubmit that document, okay? Now remember, in order to pass this class, you must score a 2 or meets expectations on 4 assignments if you want to make an A, and on 2 assignments if you want to make a B in this class. So if you're online, if you haven't got that grade that you want on writing assignment number 1, feel free to revise and resubmit, and I will regrade it. Hey, it's good to see you. It's good to see you, William. Thanks for coming today. Bazitsky just dropped into class. I won't chase him down to say hello. That's what's going on. Writing assignment 2, a bunch of people turn that in. It is my goal to get those graded by Wednesday for your class. And by Friday, for those of you who are online, I've got about 85 students in my online class, so it's just a few more. But I will get these writing assignments graded before your next one is due. Do we have any questions about the writing assignment here in class or anybody online? Does anybody online have a question? Hi, Sarah, good to see you. Ellen's here. Happy Shrudi's here. Noko, Dia, Bello, Luck. Boy, we've got a great group of students here. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was looking at my grade for the first writing assignment, which I missed the conclusion, and I'll put that there. I saw that the categories other than the conclusion said meets expectations.
Yes.
I want the A, right? That's the kind of student I want to be.
Right.
Is there anything specific that?
Right. I like that, and it's odd too. So Terrence is wanting to ask about the gradings. I have a grade 1 doesn't meet expectations, 2 it meets expectations, and 3 exceeds expectations. He wants to make an A in this class. I will tell you that a 2 is an A in this class. What I usually do with the 3 is I look out of class of 85 students, the top 2 or 3 that were really interesting, I might give a grade of 3 just to say, hey, that was over and above what I expected, that was really interesting, that was maybe the best in the class. It doesn't really mean anything if you don't get a 3. However, I've had a couple of students like Torrance ask about that, and if you do want to talk to me about, if you want to take that as honest feedback and say, hey, what could I do to really make this super awesome, I'm willing to help you work for any level you want. But just know that 2 is all you're looking for.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I knew that was going to be a problem when I threw that in there, because we've all been led to believe you got to get the top grade. I have to get the 3. I have to get the 100. I have to get the plus, plus, plus. And I get that. That's a mindset. And it doesn't, it's valuable, but not so much in this classroom. Fair enough? Fair. Okay, 17 students. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Andrew. Good to see you. Thanks for coming today. All right, so if we could, can we go ahead and get started? Let's go ahead and go to the PowerPoint presentation. So this week we are in week 4 of the class. And this week we're going to talk about cognition, human thinking, and artificial intelligence. I don't know if you're like me, but every day you turn on the TV, open up the website, and they're here telling you AI is here, artificial intelligence is here, you're as good as dead, it's all over. What's going to happen to you, right? And I know all of you have heard that within 20 years, AI will have just gotten rid of us all, right? It's getting too smart for us. Well, you know what? My goal for this week is to talk to you a little bit about how the history of cognitive psychology, the study of thinking, and artificial intelligence have co-developed over the last 60 or 70 years. And I'm going to talk to you about the lessons we've learned from computers about the human mind. And more importantly, on Wednesday, I'm going to try to convince you that at this point, there is nothing to worry about with artificial intelligence. I don't know what's going to happen in 50 years, but right now, I think we are okay. So let's go ahead and get back to the PowerPoint presentation. Now, if you'll remember, the theme of this class has been this idea of how the roots of modern psychology can always be traced back to some sort of philosophical question. There are no new questions in psychology, only new methods. The questions that we've been asking have been asked for centuries, if not tens of centuries. But probably so today we're talking, or this week we're talking about a creature I like to call Homo Calculus. That is the creature that calculates, all right? And so what we want to do is talk about the tradition of understanding man as a calculating creature. Now you can actually trace back the roots of cognitive psychology maybe to this discussion that they had in the 17th century between people who were called empiricists and people who were called rationalists. According to the empiricists, everything in the world had to be learned through experiment. There was experience. There was absolutely nothing in that mind. Everything you know came through experience. However, they were opposed by a group of people who were the rationalists, the continental rationalists, and these people believed that the seeds, the seeds of knowledge were already placed within the brain in terms of ways in which we tended to think about things. Our abilities to do things were just there, dormant, ready to be awakened. The question is, was math put on you through experience, or did you have the seeds for mathematical calculation already in your brain and they just needed to be developed? Now, the rationalists believed that the seeds for all knowledge was already in your mind. And so you can think about these people really as the first cognitive psychologists. Now, if you'll remember week 1, I mentioned that fellow Immanuel Kant, and he wrote a critique of pure reason. A critique is just a detailed analysis. So he wrote a detailed analysis of how people reason. He was, in a sense, a cognitive philosopher as well. And in fact, your textbook on page 216 even tips its cap to this philosophy of Immanuel Kant by talking about natural concepts versus artificial concepts. Natural concepts are things that you develop from your senses. Seeing you is a natural concept. On the other hand, is an experience. On the other hand, an artificial concept is something that you create inside of your mind. So the rational idea for something new. And so your book's even going to tip its cap to this guy named Immanuel Kant. Now, I mentioned this the first week. I mentioned this guy, Wilhelm Wundt, and the idea of introspection. He was actually interested in people's perception as well, but he didn't do it very scientifically. He would have people come into the lab and just think about what was going on in their minds. Not a very scientific approach to psychology at all. The real beginning of cognitive psychology wouldn't get started, honestly, until the 50s. Now, if I could, I'd like to show you a quick video. To those students in class, I have a quick video I'd like to show you. Those of you online, I'm putting this video in the link right now. I'd like for you to go ahead and watch it, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, okay? That video just popped up in your chat bar. Go ahead and watch that and come back to us. All right, for the rest of you, I'm going to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and watch this.
In 1946, moviegoers got their first glimpse of an astonishing new machine.
Are people becoming obsolete? A giant electronic brain has started cogitating at the University of Pennsylvania. It's made of vacuum tubes like your radio, and it can add up a column of figures a yard long in a second. It's the world's first electronic computer. Right now, it's solving mathematical problems for the U.S. Army, but who knows? Someday a machine like this may check up on your income tax.
Holy cow! Do you think so? Maybe one day it'll even do your income taxes. Okay, let's see. Hold on, make sure we're back to the class. Okay, class. Hopefully you folks online watch that. What do you think, folks? Do you think computers are going to one day maybe check up on our taxes? Would it surprise you to know that a computer can add a list of numbers almost 3 feet long and it only takes 1 second? Absolutely amazing. Now, I don't know if you know this, but way back in the day, before we had television stations and TV news broadcasts, if you wanted to get your news, you had to go to the movies. And before every movie, they would play these newsreels that would give you the topics of the week's interest. And this is one from the 40s where they were introducing this new thing called the computer. And I want you to know that the computer is absolutely fundamental to the development of cognitive psychology. All right, so you can think of the invention of the ENIAC, the first programmable electronic general purpose computer. Once we had this thing called an electronic brain, like you heard in that news story, they called it an electronic brain. That was not lost on cognitive psychologists, wondered about that. Linguists, people who studied language were interested in this. And then there grew up this new group of people called computer nerds who were also interested in using computers to do things. And all of these people became immediately interested in the idea of computers. Now, cognitive psychologists, the crazy thing is cognitive psychology and artificial intelligence were born the exact same year. 1956. In fact, I can tell you that cognitive psychology was born September 11th, 1956. September 11th, 1956, a bunch of psychologists, linguists, and computer nerds got together at MIT University and created a science based on the computer as a research analogy to try to understand how the mind works, what its properties are, what are the rules and laws by which the brain works. These people saw computers and said, hey, how is the human mind like a computer? Now, just a short distance away at Dartmouth in 1956, some cognitive psychologists, some linguists, and some more computer nerds got together at Dartmouth University, and they asked the question, hey, wait a minute, can we create a computer that thinks like a human? So we have these two people. One want to find out how a brain's like a computer, and the others want to make a computer that looks like the brain. So what you can say is that cognitive psychology and artificial intelligence have a shared history for the last 70 years, right? Now, the whole point of this class is not IT or not artificial intelligence, but to sort of help explain the context of how we got to the study of cognitive psychology. So what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about chapter 8, which is the chapter on memory, and talk to you about some of the insights we've learned about how the human mind works, using this computer as a research analogy. Okay, Ashika, well, Christine says she's here too, but can't seem to type from her hand. That's fine, as long as she's here, that's great. Hopefully everybody can hear me, and hopefully everybody watched the video. All right, so now here's the deal. You can't actually see. Let's go back, actually, let me see, let me go back. And the deal with cognitive psychology, if you look at this picture right underneath me, this person's brain, what cognitive psychologists are interested in, they're interested in this thing called the black box, right? What's inside that skull of yours? Here's the deal. I know what comes into your skull. I'm talking right now. I know what you're hearing. I know what you're seeing. I know hopefully what you're thinking. I know or what you're seeing and hearing. I know what's coming into your brain. And then I can ask you to write things down and I can see that output. What we're interested in, what cognitive psychologists are interested in, is they're interested in that black box. What's going on inside that mind? Now, the problem, the difficulty of cognitive psychology is you really don't know what's going on inside a mind until you can actually look inside a brain. So we have to start with some basic assumptions. Now, just like a computer, if you want something in that computer, you have to type it into that computer. You have to encode that information in a computer. If you write that paper and you want that paper to be there later, you have to save that information on your computer. And then later, if you want that information, you have to go back and open or retrieve that document. All right? Now, you can think of the human being as probably having to do 3 of the same tasks. So, can somebody tell me who's the first president of the United States? What's that guy's name? What?
George Washington.
Oh, George Washington. In order for you to know that, I can assume that A, at some point it had to be encoded into your brain. Somebody had to say it, and you had to hear it, right? You also had to store it. Unless you've been thinking about George Washington consistently since you were 8 years old, you probably stored that somewhere in your brain. And we know that now that you're able to answer the question, that somehow or another you must have retrieved that information. So what we do is we begin looking at these processes of how people encode, store, and retrieve information to begin figuring out what the patterns of thinking and thought are and how they work similar to and different from a computer. And what it's going to do is it's going to begin to build a model of the mind. And you see this model right over here. This is called the Atkinson-Shiffrin model of memory. It's important for this week's writing assignment. You'll have to use that in your discussion. And what this model does is it sort of pictorially represents the 3 basic processes that are happening in our brain. Now, instead of thinking about these as 3 different places, don't think of them as 3 places. Think of them as 3 general types of activity that are occurring in your brain. And what we want to do in studying these is to learn the rules that govern how data is encoded in your brain. We want to learn how does the human memory store information, what shape does it, how long does it store, how much can it store, and we also want to look at how reliable the retrieval process is. And you know what? Knowing this can help you understand the limitations of memory in general. It can help you become better at storing your own memories, and you know what? You can also use it for evil purposes to shape other people's memory for your own purposes if you want. Okay? So, I know. We'll talk about that a little bit later today. So, before we go, I would like for you folks to do something for me. Before we move on, and this is those of you at home too. What I'm getting ready to do is I'm getting ready to flash a screen up, my computer monitor up for you. And here's what I want you to do. This is a simple reading task. It's a reading task. But instead of reading the semantic information, don't read the word itself. What I want you to do is to identify the color of the ink that the word is written in. Oh, come on. She knows, okay, she already knows what's going on. Do you hear me? we're not going to read the word, the semantic information. Instead, you're just going to read the color of the word. Does that make sense? No, good point. Read it in your head, and we're going left to right, top to bottom, just as we would read a typical a page, all right? So, without further ado, and go. What do you notice trying to read it?
I'm alternating between whether I write the color that the text is or the color that is spelled out. I don't know if I'm alternating, but it's not, there's no consistency.
Okay, so it's what? Red, blue, green, yellow, green, black, blue, red, yellow, black, yellow, blue, green, red, black. What was difficult about that? We're reading the colors, Ashika. Yes. All right. And what was the experience for you? What was the experience when you tried to read the colors? What did you notice about that? Yeah. Your first reaction was actually to read the words and not so much the color information, right? Now, let's think about this for a second, all right? What I'm going to suggest here is that when you look around your world, you see lots of information. Do you remember when we did the selective attention task? Watch the people in white pass the basketball and you didn't notice the fellow in the black bear moonwalking? Your mind was directed at a certain part of your environment. So, the bear walked across your eyes, we know that, but you didn't notice it. All right? Now, we can say for a certainty that that bear was in your mind for a moment. It just didn't stay there. You can think of the Stroop effect, which is what this is the same phenomenon. As you're looking at these words, you're getting two pieces of information. You're getting the color of the ink, and you're also getting the semantic information of the word. You're getting the semantic information and the color of the ink. However, your brain has been trained to prefer the semantic information in your world. Reading words is more useful than reading the colors of words. So in fact, when I asked you to do that task, one piece of information was getting through your conscious awareness, and the other one was harder to get. So you wanted to read the semantic information rather than the color of the word. This demonstrates a phenomenon we're going to call the sensory memory. The sensory memory is actually this pre-conscious processing that you do before you even pay attention to things in your environment. You are getting lots of auditory signals right now. You're getting lots of visual signals right now. You're getting smell signals, touch signals. All of these signals are coming into you. What do you pay attention to? Your brain has a way of selecting what it's going to pay attention to. This is what's known as your sensory memory. Now, the sensory memory, the Stroop effect that we just demonstrated, change blindness that we talked about last week, inattentional blindness that we talked about last week with the bear, those are all examples of your sensory memory filtering out things that it doesn't think you want to pay attention to, right? So, the first thing that psychologists found in the 60s was that we actually have a preconscious part of our mind where we can select what it is we want to pay attention to. Now, it turns out there's this cool phenomenon called the cocktail party effect. It turns out if you go to a party, you can tune everybody else out. If you just want to talk to this person, you can tune everybody out. And I won't hear what he says. I won't hear what she says. I won't hear what you say. I won't hear it until you mention my name. And then for some reason, our brain has this natural filter which whenever it hears our name, it lets that break into our conscious awareness. This is sometimes referred to as the cocktail party effect. So you can think about your mind, your computer is set so that there's one part of your computer which filters out things so that you only pay attention to the things that are important. This filter is created by your day-to-day experience. You grew up learning that you don't pay attention to the color of the sign, you instead read the word. I told you to watch out for the basketball players wearing white, and you've learned to follow directions. So this filter can affect how you are able to process information. Okay? I kept wanting to say the word color instead of the color. The word was yes. Anybody have any comments or questions online? Okay. Now, it turns out once you get stuff into your conscious awareness, one of the things that we've studied with cognitive psychology is how much information people can keep in their mind at one time. So we're going to talk a little bit about this thing called your short-term memory. Now, this is not short-term memory as EMTs describe it. EMTs call short-term memory anything that happened to you within the last 24 hours. I'm not doing that. I'm instead going to say short-term memory is whatever you're thinking about right now. Whatever's in your conscious awareness right now. Right now. Now, what I'd like to do, if we could, what I'd like to do is I'd like to test the size of your short-term memory. It turns out that IQ tests, remember we talked about IQ tests a couple of weeks ago? One of the things they measure on IQ test is how many things you can juggle in your mind at one time. It's called your digit span. I'd like to test your digit span for a minute. Does everybody have a piece of paper and a pencil? And if you don't, I've got one. If you don't have one at home, get a paper and a pencil. You can type on your keyboard afterwards, but it'll be better if you write this down. Now, here's the deal. You're on your way home from work, and I need for you to stop at the store, at the grocery store, and pick up some items for me. I know you don't have a pencil and paper in front of you, so you cannot write these things down until you get to the store, which will happen immediately when I finish this list, okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a list of things to pick up from the grocery store. I want to see how many of these items you can remember. Everybody get it? All right, are you sure? Don't write this down until I get done. I know you're going to do that. Okay, here we go. Ready? All right. I need some soap, green bananas, soda, apples, coffee filters, diapers, Snickers bar, broccoli, cheddar cheese, mayonnaise, pickles, and dog food. Go. How many of these words can you write down? Let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got. Okay, online, who at home got all 12 items? I listed 12 items. I could have gone farther, but I only listed 12 items. How many of you at home were able to list all 12 items? Luck Incarnate got 7. Not bad. Isika said 7, 8. What do we have in here? Okay, I guess I should read them off for you. Okay, let's see, where is it? Oh, green bananas, soap, soda, apples, coffee filters, diapers, Snickers bar, broccoli, cheddar cheese, mayonnaise, pickles, and dog food. I got 8. Elizabeth got 8. Fantastic. 9. Do I have a 10 in here? Do we have a 10 anywhere? Do we have a 10? 9. Okay, let's see. Bella Toko. All right, fantastic. Well, you may or may not be surprised to know. Do you remember I talked to you about the just noticeable difference, the first scientific measurement of the mind? Well, here's a second one. It's called Miller's magic number. It turns out that anytime you ask somebody to juggle things in their mind, they can juggle, on average, 7 items. 7 items, plus or minus 2. So what I'm going to bet is that most of you remembered somewhere between 5 and 9 items. And if I looked at the score, I got a 6, I got an 8, I got a 9, I got a 7, I got an 8. Do we have anybody here that scored less than 5? Do we have anybody here that scored more than 9? Pretty bizarre, right? And so what he represented, what this guy, George Miller, realized was that our short-term memory has this very limited amount of space in it. He called it the magic number 7. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you remembered soap? How many of you remembered soap? Most everybody remembered soap. What about online? How many of you online remembered soap? Okay. Now, how many of you here in the room remembered dog food? I got almost everybody here remembering dog food. What about those of you at home? How many of you remembered dog food at home? Soap was number 1. And dog food was the last one. How many of you remembered diapers? Raise your hands if you remembered diapers. 1, 2, 3 of you remembered diapers. How many of you online remembered diapers? Do you want to take a guess at where diapers was in that list?
6 or 7.
It was right smack dab in the middle of that list, right. So not only did George Miller discover that really we can keep about 6 or 7 items in our brain at any one time, what he realized was that if we overload the short-term memory, there's certain predictable parts that don't make it into our memory. It turns out when you serially present something, one after the other, people tend to remember the first thing they hear, they tend to remember the last thing they hear, but they tend to forget the thing in the middle. And if you look at this chart I have right up here, what you're going to see is the serial position curve. You'll notice everybody remembered soap. Everybody remembered dog food. Not nearly as many people remembered diapers. There you go. I couldn't even remember it, okay? So, now, if I could, I'd like to do one more test for you. I'm going to read a series of letters. A series of letters. I'd like for you to, let me see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 12 letters. Simple. I'm going to read these 12 letters in a row, and I want you to write these letters down in order. Can you do that for me? Okay. Here we go. C, B-S-A, B-C-H, B-O-M-T-V. Go. What was your experience, folks? Overwhelmed? Yeah. Overwhelmed. Okay. I can't remember the order. Okay, excuse me. I actually didn't read it in the right pattern. Let me read it in a better pattern, okay? CBS, ABC, HBO, MTV. Any easier to remember the pattern now? Why? Why?
Because we've heard some of those names before. Well, I guess we would connect them as names to brands and things like that.
So it went from being 12 letters in a row to being 4 TV channels in a row. In a sense, what you did was you chunked them. Now, here's the rule with the short-term memory. The short-term memory can only hold 7 chunks at one time. We just demonstrated that with the list of foods. Here's the deal. Those chunks can be as big as you want them to be. So, what I could have done, instead of trying to remember 12 words, you could have put mayonnaise, dill pickles, cheddar cheese together to make a sandwich, right? You could have chunked those 3 things together. Okay, I'm going to go over and get sandwich food: cheddar cheese, mayonnaise, dill pickles. Then I'm going to get things for breakfast: soda, coffee filters, and bananas, right? So in a sense, what you can do is you can supersize the power of your short-term memory by learning how to chunk things. But the rule is you can only keep 7 plus or minus 2 chunks in your short-term memory at one time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the long-term memory. So, there's a part of your mind, according to these cognitive psychologists, there's a part of our mind where things go, where we get to select what it is we're going to pay attention to. Visual images stay in our eyes for 1 second. Auditory images, sounds, stay in our ears for 3 seconds. But then if we don't pay attention to them, they bounce out of our memory and we never know that we saw these things, kind of like the dancing bear. Once things get into our conscious awareness and we're actively thinking about them, it turns out that as long as we're rehearsing those things, saying them over and over to ourselves, they're in our memory. But we can only hold a certain number of objects in our conscious awareness at any given time. You only have a large enough, let's call it random access memory, the desktop for your computer. You can only have so many things on there. That's why we use the word cognitive miser. You have to learn what not to pay attention to so you can focus on the small subset of things that you can pay attention to. Now, we do know that there is a part of your mind where things go to stay until you are ready to use them. This part of your mind is unconscious. That is, you weren't thinking about George Washington until I just said him, okay? But having said him, you can then call George Washington and everything you know about George Washington back into your consciousness. We're going to call that your long-term memory. Just like a computer has a hard drive, you have a long-term memory. Now, what do we know about that long-term memory? Well, to be quite honest, we don't know how big it is, but it's pretty stinking big. So let's use the word unlimited, okay? And that's simply because we don't know what the limits of human memory really are. I don't know if you folks know this, but there is actually a memory Olympics every year. There's an international memory champion, and people train so they can do amazing feats of memory. I saw a guy remember every card, the position of every card in a deck of cards in 30 seconds. 30 seconds is all it took him. He looked at all the cards one time and remembered the position of each and every one of them. We don't know how big or how awesome your memory is. Number 2, we know that some memories seem to last forever. If you've ever been around an older person like your parents or grandparents, they will tell you about things that happened in 1926 with great gusto and detail. We know that memories last forever. Okay? Now, the other thing we do know is that not all of the things that are in your long-term memory are real memories. Unlike a computer that only stores what you put in that computer, human beings sometimes create memories that aren't there. And unlike a computer, if you hit the save button, that computer automatically saves that memory. We know that that's not always the case for human beings. Whether or not something goes from your short-term memory to your long-term memory depends upon the quality of rehearsal. And rehearsal is simply what you're doing with it, the object, while you're actively thinking about it, okay? So we're going to talk about that. Now, here's the deal. The first thing I want to do is to suggest to you that we have an idea about how things are organized in the mind. Well, actually, let me tell you, number one is we do not know what a memory looks like in biological matter, okay? Your book mentions the search for the engram. We have not found it. I cannot tell you what a bunny rabbit looks like in your neural matter. I can't do it. I can't tell you what your Aunt Lucy looks like. I can't tell you what 3 times 2, the multiplication table. We don't know what a biological memory looks like right now. We have no idea. But we do believe that our memory is organized in these things called semantic networks that contain, if you will, these other things called schemas, both described in your book. So, quickly if I could, let's go to this board right here. Let's play a quick game. Let's play a quick game of word association. Word association. Here we go, folks. What comes to your mind? Clown. Of course it does. Of course it does. What else? Animals. Nice. What else? Popcorn. Oh, wow, popcorn. Okay, hold on. I got a great question. Popcorn and elephants in a tent. There we go. Elephants and tents online. Right. Quickly, Luck Incarnate asked a question, why you need to keep thinking about your dreams until your long-term memory kicks in. When I was talking about the type of rehearsal and how that affects your memory, Luck Incarnate asked a great question. Here's the deal. There's actually a specific part of your brain called your hippocampus that needs to be activated if you are going to remember something. All right. Now, if you watch the video about Clive Waring, the man with the 7-second memory, this guy had a fever that burned out his hippocampus. He can't remember anything for longer than 7 seconds. You can say, Clive, my name is Chris. He'll say, nice to meet you. What's my name? He'll go, I have no idea what your name is. Okay. He has no short-term memory. No memory because his hippocampus is burned out. So what that means, Luck Incarnate, is turns out they do brain scans when you're asleep. Remember the EEGs? It turns out that when you're dreaming, your hippocampus is not activated. And so all of the crazy images that you see in your dreams, you know how they just seem to slip away as soon as you wake up and you try as you might, you can't stop them? That's because they weren't processed through the hippocampus. And so when we talk about the quality of rehearsal, we're going to talk about that as being a necessity for creating memories. So there's 2 kinds of amnesia. Some people can't remember things that happened before the accident, and some people can't remember new things after the accident. If you get in a car accident and damage the hippocampus, you may be able to remember what happened before the accident, but you won't be able to remember new memories. On the other hand, some people get in a car accident and they'll forget large parts of what happened before the accident, but then they'll be able to form new memories after the accident. Okay? So, here's the deal. So, this right here is what I would call a schema for a circus. And if I could, I'd like to share you this. Uh-oh. All right. Look at this. This is a picture I found online of a circus. So I Googled circus, and look what popped up. A circus with a tent. Is there a clown there? Is there a juggler over there? Maybe not. Is there an animal? Are there animals? Is one of those animals an elephant? Wow. Is there popcorn? There should be. There should be. Okay. So in a sense, what's the point? Why were you able to give me that information, and why was it similar to what we saw online? Why this information? Would all of you agree with this? What if I put in, no, not, let's see, what if I put in a breakfast bar? Would that fit?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Unless we're feeding it to the animals, it just doesn't fit. So what we know is that human minds are composed of these things called schemas, and these schemas are connected in what we'll call association networks. So I could say clown, okay, and let's say I'm a sports fan, and I've got a friend who doesn't like LeBron James. And so whenever I say LeBron James, he calls him a clown. You know what I mean? Now, I don't think that about LeBron James, and please don't tell him if you know him, because I don't want that guy beating me up. But in a sense, you could say that. Or you could say animals. You could say dog. And then that's hair. And then hair could make you think about rock star. Do you see how we could play this game all day long? Right. Juggler, we could say bills. Juggle your bills. Bill collector. That might make us think about raise. So in a sense, all of these objects are connected in our mind. Now, why is this important, Chris, you might ask? Okay, here's the deal. One of the things that we know is if you want to get something into your long-term memory, you need to use what's known as elaborative rehearsal. Elaborative rehearsal. What exactly is elaborative rehearsal, and how is it different from what we call maintenance rehearsal? Maintenance rehearsal is simply repeating something over and over and over in your brain. Elaborative rehearsal is when you take something and relate it to something that you already have in your brain. Now, since your brain is composed of these networks, by relating it to things in that network, you're taking advantage of the strength of the system. So I am really good with phone numbers. Are any of you good with phone numbers? I'm really good with phone numbers, credit cards, social security numbers. I remember every number I've got, every 12-digit number I've got. I can't forget it. Phone numbers from when I was 12, I can remember them, right? So I have a friend, I met him, and his phone number is almost this. I changed the date so that you guys don't call him, okay? His phone number is almost 776-1066. Now, I'm a history nerd. So 776, what history date does that sound like? 1776. I already remembered that. So I related the first three numbers he's got to 1776. Now, does anybody remember the date 1066? If anybody online remembers that, does anybody know online 1066? William the Conqueror, the Norman invasion. I don't know why I know that. That's the beautiful thing about memory. You don't have to know why it's in your memory. If it's in your memory, it's a hook. I don't know why I have 1066, but it is stuck in my mind and I can't get it out. And so my friend's last four digits of his number are 1066. So when I think of my friend Linwood, I don't try to remember his numbers. I think Revolutionary War and the Battle of Hastings. And suddenly his number pops up into my brain. That's what we'll call elaborative rehearsal. Elaborative rehearsal leads to a stronger memory trace than maintenance rehearsal. Now, how does this help me as a student? One of the things that I see students do a lot is get flashcards. And they have the definition on one side and the term on the other. Now, here's the thing. If you do that, sometimes here's the term, here's the definition. 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 You know what kind of elaboration is? That's maintenance rehearsal. You might as well be repeating 776, 1066, 776, 1066. Now, if you use the flashcards long enough, you will get it. But a better way is to take your flashcards and arrange them on a floor of your apartment and look at the relationships between those flashcards. Or take them and put them into piles for categories. Hey, these flashcards go in this pile. These flashcards are this simple. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, and now here's the deal. Some people say, well, I use flashcards and it works for me. Yes. Here's the thing though, you want to be as quick as possible. And I'm going to suggest to you that the flashcards, the maintenance rehearsal, isn't going to be quick and efficient. Now, if you're just learning 4 chapters for a Psych 150 lecture, exam, not a big deal. However, some of you may want to go to med school or law school. And if you've ever been in law school, all you do is read cases all day long. And you have to remember hundreds and hundreds of cases. If you go to medical school, all you have to do is learn definitions and terms all day long. And the thing that makes med school students and the law school students different from you, not better, not different, different, not better, is that they have learned to use elaborative rehearsal. They are really, really good at it. I promise, I promise, I promise. On Wednesday night, if you come to my webinar on Wednesday night, we're going to talk about ways to supercharge your memory. I'm going to show you a video about people from the Memory Olympics, and then I'm going to show you the method of location, the tried and true way to have awesome memory. Okay? Any questions online? Wait a minute, Andrew, did you really know the Norman invasion? Oh, come on. Hold on. You know what that deserves? That deserves a round of applause. I just gave him the applause button. You folks don't hear that. But congratulations, Andrew. That was absolutely amazing. If you knew that, I'd like to welcome you to the Club of Nerds with me. Yes, sir.
What time is the lecture on Wednesday? 7?
The lecture is Wednesday night at 7 p.m. in Microsoft Teams. Yeah. Okay. Now, so quickly, I'd like to talk about the biology of memory. I never really thought about it this way, but did you know that there are different types of memories? When we think of memories, we have to broaden the term of what it means to have a memory. Most people, when they think of memories, they only think of what we'll call declarative or explicit memories. What's a memory? Well, that's who George Washington is. That's knowing the Battle of Hastings. That's a memory. You know what? Yes, that's a memory. But knowing how to use a telephone is also a memory. Knowing how to ride a bike is also a memory. Being scared of that dog that bit you last year is a memory. All of these things, if you will, are memories. And what we need to realize is that these different kinds of memories are processed in different parts of the brain. So through a bunch of case studies, remember we talked about the case study methodology, over the years we have found that memory is not one thing. Memory is many different things, and these many different things are processed in different parts of the brain. So we've got the big organization is between what we'll call explicit and implicit memories. Anything you have to call up into your conscious awareness is an explicit memory. William, 3 times 2.
That is 6.
Very good. first president of the United States was? Okay, who said, give me liberty or give me death? Good one. Does anybody know online? Okay, Andrew does trivia oh, that's why he knew it. Andrew's saying he does trivia. Right, okay, so you're one of those trivia all-star guys. I like that. Okay, so Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. Now, all of those memories you had to call up in your conscious awareness. Remember we talked about conscious processing and unconscious processing? You have conscious thinking, conscious memories, and unconscious memories. Now, here's the deal. When you grab your car keys, do you have to remember how to put your car keys in your car? Kind of happens. Did you know that you remember how to walk? That's a memory. You never thought about it, but when you walk, okay, when you walk, you are remembering how to move your legs the right way. Those are all memories. So we're going to differentiate between those memories that we have to call up into our awareness, explicit memories, and we're going to differentiate from all the others, which we'll call implicit memories. Now, you can think of different kinds of explicit memories. They're going to talk about two kinds, what we call episodic memories and semantic memories. I might even add a third kind of explicit memory, self-memories, okay? So an episodic memory, can you tell me what was the color of the first bike you had? Do you remember? You had a pink bike. That is an episodic memory. She's telling us about a bike she had, an episode in her life. That's Lelia telling us that. Now, what's a semantic memory? How many wheels does a bicycle have? 2. Okay, that's also an explicit memory, but a semantic memory is a knowledge for a fact. So when I ride bicycles, that's an explicit memory. That's an episodic memory. Knowing what a bike is a semantic memory. Now, how do we know this? Well, occasionally people have accidents and they lose their memory, but these people won't lose their memory for what a bike was. They'll lose their memory for the last time they rode a bike. So we know that those are two different memories. And I would argue that there's even a third explicit memory type called self-memory. What's your birthday?
September 20th, 1994.
Boom, there you go. He knew that fact. Did you know there are some people who suffer from psychogenic amnesia? Stress gets so bad on them that these people will actually forget who they are. And some of these people will even go into fugue. They will get on a bus, drive to a different town, and their family members may find them 6 months later working as a bartender at an Applebee's in Pasquotank, Virginia or something, okay? So these are what we'll call explicit memories, memories that you have to pull up in your frontal lobe. Now, we're going to differentiate those from what we'll call emotional memories. Any memory where an emotion was transferred to you, you remember that. If a dog bit you, when you're in the room with a dog, you will start sweating because your body will remember that experience. I guarantee you I could measure that. Or knowing how to ride a bike or knowing how to use a telephone, those are what we'll call procedural memories. So they fall under the category of implicit memories. Musicians, okay, Luck Incarnate talks about musicians practicing before competitions by playing the song over and over again to be able to do it automatically. That is a great point of view, Luck Incarnate. In fact, I would argue to you, if a musician has to think about it, they don't actually know how to play it yet. If you've ever watched a musician playing, they'll keep up a conversation while playing. They're not even thinking about it. What's the word we use for that kind of memory? Muscle memory. Muscle memory. That's because the behavior has gone from being an explicit memory to a non-conscious procedural memory. Anytime you learn something new, you have to focus on it. How do I form a G chord? I'm a really bad guitarist. How do I form a G chord? I know how to do that. I know how to form a C chord, right? but I have to think about it. Whereas truly, a person who's truly fluent doesn't have to think about it. It just happens automatically. So yes, musical memory is procedural memory. That's a great point, Luck Incarnate. Now here's the crazy thing. It turns out that procedural memories, implicit memories are more rear brain events. Explicit memories are more frontal brain events. So when you go to this website, this picture right here, this is in your book, you'll notice it's going to talk about the forebrain, the frontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the cerebellum. All right, your memories of who you are, where you were last Thursday, and who Benjamin Franklin is are stored for the most part in your frontal lobe, and I'll say your temporal lobe as well, okay? This is where your explicit memories are stored. Now, we do know that your hippocampus and your amygdala, they're attached together, and they are both very important in memory. Your hippocampus is responsible for helping you store memories. They're not stored in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that stamps them in your temporal or your frontal lobe. We know this because people with damage to their hippocampus can remember things that they learned before the accident, but they can't store new memories. Now, can somebody tell me why, if I told you that your amygdala is your emotional center, it's your fight or flight center. It's where when somebody jumps out of a closet and yells boo and you freak out, that is your amygdala firing up. Can somebody tell me why would your amygdala be attached to your hippocampus? Does anybody know? Survival. Yes, why is that? Because it's important to remember.
How you feel in certain situations.
Yes. You almost, what now?
Things that might hurt you or kill you.
There you go. It's very important to realize that that saber-toothed tiger ate my friend Bill last week, and that was very scary. Absolutely. Same thing with food, too. Know where the water hole is, right? How many, quickly, how many of you, what color shirt did I wear on Wednesday, last Wednesday? Did anybody know? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, why didn't you remember that?
I'm sorry, man.
It wasn't important. I don't remember what you were wearing. It wasn't important. However, had I came in here and lectured carrying a 9mm pistol with me all day long, do you think you would have remembered that? Yes, because it would have had an emotional effect on you. It would have had an emotional effect on you. So if you think about it, our emotions are the tag, the label that tags things to be remembered. Hey, that saber-toothed tiger almost killed me. Let's remember that. Let's remember this because it tasted really good. All right, let's remember this because I liked it, that because I didn't like it. So your hippocampus and your amygdala kind of help us decide what it is we're going to remember. Now, your amygdala is very responsible for these emotional memories. It turns out there's a crazy syndrome called Cluvier-Bucy syndrome. It's on the previous page. Very rare in humans and pretty rare in animals, but they've done it experimentally to monkeys, because you can do this kind of stuff to monkeys. It turns out when you destroy a monkey's amygdala, it forgets that it's afraid of some things. So it will quit avoiding its natural predators, and they begin eating and having sex with inanimate objects because they don't seem to understand. They lose their emotional memory, if you will. They lose their emotional memories. Now, the final part of the memory puzzle is your cerebellum. Your cerebellum controls fine motor behaviors. It's where you store your memories for all of the behaviors that you can do. When you dial a phone, that's your cerebellum. When you ride a bike, that's your cerebellum. When you walk, that's your cerebellum. Anybody ever seen somebody who has difficulty walking sometimes? That's because they've got cerebellum damage and their memory for how to walk isn't perfect, right? Now, and so what we know is that these different parts of the brain are responsible for different memories. Why is this important? If you've ever seen anybody with Alzheimer's disease before, okay, Alzheimer's disease is a disease where you have proteins and plaques that grow in your brain and they kill nerve tissue. And as the nerve tissue dies, whatever it controls disappears. Okay, that ability disappears. It turns out that Alzheimer's progresses from the front of the brain to the back of the brain. So when you see people with Alzheimer's, what you're going to notice is the first thing they're going to start forgetting is people's names, birthdays, where they were last week, what day of the week it is, who's president. That's front brain stuff. But they're still going to remember how to use a phone and how to walk. But as the disease progresses and the cell death starts moving back, you're going to notice they're going to start losing more basic memories. Grandpa will forget where the phone is. Then Grandpa will forget how to pick up the phone, right? And then Grandpa will forget how to dial numbers. So in a sense, what happens as you lose this tissue, it's going to get rid of your explicit memories first, and then it's going to move back. And as it kills brain tissue towards the back, you're going to start seeing procedural memories die. Now, all of this to say is, I just want you to know that memory is not a unitary thing. There are different kinds of memories, and different memories are controlled by different parts of the brain. Okay. One last thing I will say before I let you go is the hippocampus is actually responsible for memory. Each and every one of you knows exactly where your house is. Y'all know where Bojangles is. You know where your favorite Chick-fil-A is. You know where your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your whoever friend's house, right? You know when you walk in a grocery store where to find the beer aisle and where to find the ice cream aisle. Your memory for locations is absolutely fantastic because it has to be. From an evolutionary standpoint, if the organism can't find the food and avoid the predators, the organism will die. Your hippocampus is responsible for that. And it is amazing, absolutely amazing. And even as I walk through parts of this room, my brain is registering where I am in this room so I can remember where I am in this room. When you decide to study, if you want to hypercharge your memory, you will learn to incorporate the fact that your brain is great with locations. Your brain is so phenomenally great with locations that you can actually close your eyes and put objects along a path that you walk every day. And then you can close your eyes and walk along that path and you will see the things that you stored. It's an amazing technique that all of the memory athletes use. We are going to learn on Wednesday. And that one final thing, I'm not going to talk about it, but your memory is not a photograph. Your memory is a JPEG, is a Wikipedia page. Not a JPEG, it's a Wikipedia page. A lot of people think about memory as being perfect. Memory is not perfect. Your memory changes every time you access it. Every time I think about my third grade birthday party, Stacy McCarver says something different to me. I love Stacy McCarver, okay? And so when I think about my third grade birthday party, she was wearing green shorts this time. Then the next time she was wearing red shorts. Then we did the ice cream race together or whatever. So every time you access a memory, you actually create a new memory. And one of the things that I want you to talk about this week for the discussion board is I gave you a video. No, I didn't. I didn't do that video this week, did I? Crap, that was in my other class. Never mind. Scratch that thought. Okay, so that's all I have to say. I want to thank everybody in class for coming. I appreciate you coming today when you didn't have to. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming online today. It was great seeing you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a text or an email, and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, have a great day. Take care. Bye.